Are we the baddies?
I drink your milkshake.
Hey, this is Box Office Baddies coming to you from a balcony in beautiful Koreatown, Los Angeles. My name is Sean.
And my name's Nick, and this is a podcast about two friends that love film but couldn't disagree more about the movies that they love.
So today we are actually talking about my favorite film, which is There'll Be Blood. I think you've heard me be annoying about talking this movie probably the whole length of our friendship.
Yep. It started, I think, when me and Sean wanted to begin this podcast. It was, we started talking about There Will Be Blood, and I said I shut it off after 17 minutes because
I was so mad.
There was no dialogue. And for me, like I said, I grew up on blockbusters, the whole 9 yards about, kind of basic film taste, as you would call it. And it just wasn't for me, I felt like. And he started arguing his case, and I saw where he was coming from. So this
he was like, bro, like it was so quiet in the beginning, like they didn't even like talk at all. And I was like, motherfucker, like we're leading it into the movie. You got to give it some time, a little development.
Yeah, I just didn't have the patience. So this was kind of the spawn of the podcast. So I was really excited to dive into this movie.
Yeah, so There Will Be Blood came out in 2007. It is based on Upton Sinclair's novel Oil, which came out a long time ago. And this is basically a hardcore drama, which is set in the early 1900s, following this character named Daniel Plainview, which is the main character, and his journey through his job as an oil man and him dealing with things like power, greed, and is really just kind of an early movie about, I guess, early capitalism, really.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the film. After watching it, and kind of my first impression of shutting it off, once I gave it time, I liked it. But, Sean mentioned to me while we were watching it that it was scored by Johnny Greenwood, who any musician fans out there would love. Radiohead, Johnny Greenwood, all the stuff.
Definitely.
And I think that opening scene where the orchestra was swelling on the note and then it resolved with a swell into the first scene, I thought that was a really cool moment for the score.
I feel like Johnny Greenwood usually does every Paul Thomas Anderson movie, or at least most of them he scores, and I think they have a close relationship. And what I love about Johnny Greenwood's scores is I feel like it's almost like there's a dialogue to it, you know what I mean? Like it's saying something. It's telling you sonically to focus on an aspect of the movie. Like Nick was saying, the opening scene with just this really grandiose guttural kind of noise, and it's so large that it really kind of showed me the vastness of wow, this is undeveloped Southern California area, you know what I mean, before it was how it is today, I suppose, you know what I mean?
Yeah, another thing I really enjoyed about the score was, I don't know if anyone's noticed who's seen the film, but every time that there is the hole in the well, this kind of inner swirling string motion starts that makes you feel as if you're falling into a well. With the musical feel, and I think that was intentional by him, and I thought that was a really nice touch.
That's why I've never watched it with a music friend before, so I haven't actually played music. And when Nick brought that up to me, it's I think it's kind of one of those things that you notice very subconsciously, but you don't really put it into perspective while you're watching it unless you have a music background. So that was cool for Nick to point that out. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, another thing that I really liked about the score was when the well collapses in that really famous scene. They had kind of all these shakers going. They had this tom, but it was all kind of out of tune, out of time. It had a really strange meter, this groove, but it was repetitive, so it kind of justified itself. But it was a really nice counterpoint to the scene, I thought.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to just talk about what surrounds the movie first.
Sure.
So early shooting for this movie was actually set in Marfa, Texas, and then basically almost all of the film after that was set in the greater Los Angeles area. It was cool that they were able to shoot in parts of LA to give it that feel, and I was surprised in the greater LA area that they had a place that was that barren to shoot off of just in general, It's kind of shocking to me considered how commercialized everything is now.
Yeah, it looked like Joshua Tree to me.
Yeah, for sure. Just wide open frontier desert. And so obviously Paul Thomas Anderson wrote and directed this film. He usually writes original screenplays, but again, it's related to Upton Sinclair's novel. Obviously, Daniel Day-Lewis is the star, and I don't really think that there is like a better actor. I mean, you could look at like big budget entertaining films where people are like great at what they do, you know, but for really like dramatic roles, I don't really think you could get much better than like the method acting of Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, I agree. I love a lot of his movies. Gangs of New York, which I think we're going to do in a later episode.
Yeah, I didn't love that one.
Lincoln is amazing.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
a great Daniel Day-Lewis role. But as you can tell, by the way, Sean is talking about Daniel Day-Lewis and Paul Thomas Anderson. I can imagine that every time Sean watches this movie alone, he just gets naked, he puts it on in black and white with the sound off, and just starts moaning to himself. Like,
Jesus, dude. It's sexual, bro.
well, I think it kind of is, because you love Paul Thomas Anderson so much, and I think
Yeah.
that's a big reason why you love film.
I think it's like plutonic. Like, it's like I don't want to like bang PTA, but like I would love to, you know, like hang out and talk to him, you know.
What other movies do you like by him?
I would say after There'll Be Blood, I would say the Master is probably my second favorite movie. That's with Joaquin Phoenix and Philip Seymour Hoffman, two actors that he's worked with in the past. I
haven't seen The Master.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoy other movies like, like Magnolia, which is like his like 3-hour opus from back in the day. It's not necessarily like for everyone. It's really heady. It's so fucking long. But
Yeah,
I
Boogie
think
Nights.
Boogie Nights is like the quintessential PTA like movie that put him on the map, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so let's jump into Daniel Day-Lewis's character in general, though.
Okay.
So
Hit me.
I think you notice like right off the bat, he's like this very classic like capitalist who's like running around trying to make deals with oil. So it's like after the beginning, he mines the well, sets it up, and then he starts going town to town where there might be leads where he could, I guess, mine new wells, you know? And I think right off the bat, you can almost tell that doesn't always have the best intentions, you know? Even when you didn't actually see physical proof that he was kind of a bastard, like, he just has, like, this feel to him, like con artist sort of, like, I don't know, just, like, extreme capitalist, like a Rockefeller or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was one thing that I said we were watching the movie, is that he reminded me of Rockefeller in the sense that he was very cutthroat. He was kind of doing all of these moves before people even knew what business was. There's all these kind of country people that own this land that he's trying to take over, buy, kind of a mixed bag. And every time he's trying to do it, some people are kind of hip to it and smart, but some people get taken advantage of. But I thought it was definitely really representational the way that the economy was working, you know, in that period, kind of the post-industrial revolution, like early 20th century era.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think Daniel Day-Lewis's character, which again his name is Daniel Plainview, he it's very, you can see right off the bat that he's very power hungry. He definitely wants to be on top of people, best people, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this really starts to come together when we see Paul Dano's character, you know, the guy who played the minister of the church in Little Boston.
Yeah, I thought it was a great role by him. It was a little bit confusing how he played two characters.
Yeah.
I think you kind of had to catch on to that, but
He played the twin brother of himself.
yeah, that closing scene, the acting, that is so incredible. Like all the dead silence and all the air that you feel in a moment like that. I thought it was really...
Let's reel it in, dude. Let's not skip to the end now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite scenes, but we'll get there.
No, for sure. Yeah, Paul Dano is just... I feel like I have so much respect for him as an actor to come in and do something as good as he did in a role right next to Daniel Day-Lewis. I think, like, when you... I'd imagine, at least, if you're in that industry and you come in next to, like, an absolute master of the craft, he had to have been shitting himself, you know? But I think, like, his composure, his energy that he brought to the role was not only entertaining, but just completely captivating, I would say. And, yeah, I think that he was another part of the movie which contributed to the element of power-hungry people. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I thought one of my favorite scenes of Daniel in the movie rather, was the confronting of the fake brother, kind of when he woke him up with the gun in his face.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. And I thought that it was great. The way that it flipped. It was a great what's the word, like a switch or a
Yeah, we can go switch. But yeah, so one thing I wanted to talk about was, so Paul Dano's clashing with Daniel Day-Lewis's character, basically Eli and Daniel coming together. They want to constantly one-up each other, and they're really after the same thing, but under different, like, disguises. You know what I'm saying? Like, Daniel Day-Lewis is obviously, like, the big capitalist oil man who wants to come in, essentially, like, rape these towns of their oil and, like, reap all the benefits while giving very little to people of the towns. And Paul Dano is a member of a congregation which, once there starts to have some, like, oil running in, which there's money being promised, he wanted to, like, grow his congregation and have power in that way. So when you see Eli and Daniel's character come together, it's really interesting to see not only how, like, they act towards each other, but also technical aspects of it where the camera sort of changes, right? So most of the time when you're watching Daniel's character, he is, like, the power, like, authority figure in every scene. So, like, the camera will be following him. It will be from his point of view, and these are all techniques that show that he is very much in charge. But once you see Eli's character come in, he starts challenging him in different scenes, and he will be the person that's in charge. The camera will start putting Daniel in the hot seat for a second, and it's a great method of showing that, and it also really makes him feel uncomfortable in, like, the narrative of the film. So you start to see, like, wow, there's, like, this incredible tension, which leads to the, I think, almost perfect character development of all the characters in the movie, really.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I really enjoyed Eli's character, and I think another thing that I really enjoyed about the movie was the wardrobe. I really enjoyed.
Why so expensive?
Yeah, the period pieces are, like, so high budget, and I love seeing, the ways that they can invent photographs that existed into video and all that.
Totally.
But another thing I really loved not sure if I loved, but the fact that they kind of foreshadow the fact that a child would be injured or killed.
Definitely.
In the beginning, having all the kids around the oil rig, they had the stamp of the oil on
very symbolic.
on the baby, and I think a lot of great movies, they have, like, a child injury, right? Like, there's something weird about that. Like,
it's not a drama unless a kid, like, breaks his neck or something.
It's true, because, like, you think about, like, Master and Commander, Russell Crowe. Yeah. Do you remember when they amputate the kid's arm? Like,
he's, like, biting onto the piece of wood, and he's like,
it's such a brutal scene, but I think it's part of, like, like you said, a great drama. But as much as I don't like to see that happen, I do love to see it.
Well, dude, if there's not drama, like, a kid getting hurt in a drama, I'm not watching it, dude. It's my favorite part. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess so.
It's nice to see a kid get hurt every once in a while, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Sean's a psycho.
Keeps me young. Yeah, so I think throughout the movie, jumping back to Daniel, you really start to see that, like, I guess, like, behind, like, this, like, really, like, angry, like, powerful man, there is a few things that keep him at bay, or at least make him want to be a better person, potentially. And I think that's both his son, who he was really close to the whole time, and that was also, like, his quote-unquote brother that ended up being a con artist who stole his brother's identity. But both of these people brought out the best of him, which is very rare in this movie. And when you see them get taken away, it is essentially, like, reaffirms his point of how much he, like, doesn't like people. For instance, he has this line where he says, I see the worst in people. I have a competition in me, and I don't want to see anyone succeed other than myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy that there's a couple characters that keep him at bay, but I don't really think there was anything that could have saved him, really.
Yeah, for sure. I really liked that the film was kind of cyclical. Like, at the end, it felt like it ended how it started. Like, it starts as, the character Daniel kind of trying to get his own, and he gets it and he wins, and there's other people that lose, that die in that, like, opening scene. Yeah. And then in the closing scene, it's just, like, blown out to way different proportions. Like, he's in his castle, in his bowling alley, and he beats the guy to death with the pin to be the one that wins. Yeah. It just seems like a story that could just keep on going.
Yeah. It's crazy. Do you want to talk about that last scene for a bit?
Sure.
Yeah, that one's really fun. I think it has like the most like iconic, like scenes, like maybe like in the whole film, or like that scene is one of the most iconic in the film, but also just like I think ever maybe. And I guess part of our theme song in the show relates to that.
Yep.
I drink your milkshake.
Yeah, there's a line where he talks about how he's taking advantage of Eli's character, and the whole time he's using a metaphor of a straw that's reaching across the room and saying, "I'm drinking your milkshake." And we kind of spliced that up in our intro music and used it for, when it cuts in, you have that backbeat of the 60s sample of "Are We the Baddies?"
Yeah.
And then it cuts into, "I drink your milkshake."
Milkshake.
Yeah. We put the delay on there. It's fun.
But yeah, like back to that scene, it's funny because throughout the movie, Eli and Daniel are totally trying to best each other. And Eli actually comes defeated, but he doesn't want Daniel to think that he's defeated. And he also thinks that he's going to get a cut of the pie, right? When you talk about that last plot of land that Daniel needed to get to build his pipeline was like the bandy track, And so Eli comes saying, I have like access to the bandy track, like we can make a bunch of money together, but like you're going to have to give me like this $100,000 like signing fee. Mm-hmm. And just Daniel like
he plays him out.
Yeah, Daniel basically just taking advantage of him to have any sort of ounce of being on top of someone, even though that he's like lost his sanity, everything. He sees this as like maybe the last like bastion of like topping someone, and he basically tells him as like a minister to say, "I am a false prophet, and God is a superstition." And so it's, even though that
you love that part.
Yeah, definitely. But it's like, even after he said like that whole thing many times as loud as he possibly can, it's like, the whole time that like Daniel's just fucking with him, because like he already made like the pipeline. The bandy tracks hasn't been a thing for 45 minutes in the movie. Yeah. So it's I don't know, man. It's so brutal. It's kind of like a microcosm of like the whole relationship between them.
Yeah, it's kind of the beginning and the ending of him just like winning,
Yeah, and I think, like we said off the top of the episode, like the whole idea of like it being kind of about capitalism. I think Daniel Plainview and Paul Dano's character, even though he was a minister and the other guy was an oil man, I think that they both represent like the dark sides of like capitalism, like just in general. And you could take that with a grain of salt. You could be a socialist, a communist,
Marca,
woke supreme, or maybe you like capitalism. It doesn't matter. But regardless, it's like there's bad parts of anything. And I think that these characters very much like represent like the power hungry. It's never going to be enough. Topping your neighbor, fucking people over in the process.
It's the Gilded Age. It's like the Andrew Carnegies. It's the John Rockefellers. It's the, Cornelius Vanderbilts. It's all the people that had all the money early when no one understood what capitalism was. And, there's always going to be the first one, of course, but they're really interesting characters, and I'm glad that the film kind of dove into that theme in American history.
Totally. Is there anything else you want to talk about the movie?
I mean, other than the fact that I thought I was surprised, I think there's something to be said for when you watch a movie with someone else versus when you watch it alone. I think you give.
That's the moral of the story.
I think you always got to try to watch a movie with someone else because you give it more of a chance. And when I watch a movie with Sean, I give more of a chance, and I thought that that was a good thing that I learned from this, but I think there still could have been some talking in the first 20 minutes, and it wouldn't have hurt the cinematic value.
Yeah, but I think that kind of speaks to the idea of like wide open frontier. Like, he's by himself. Like, what do you expect him to talk to himself, or do you want to just like a script rewrite?
I just wanted to scream like when they got doused in flaming hot oil, coming from the Earth's crust.
Yeah. I can leave you with a fun fact. Before we head out.
Hit us with the fun fact.
So we all know that Daniel Day-Lewis is the MJ, not Michael Jackson, but the Michael. Whoa. The Michael Jordan of acting. He is a method actor. He definitely is one of those dorks you see on set that really just like commit so hard that like, you know, like they just probably annoy certain people on set. Like, dude, imagine like, especially what my dad does being like a gaffer. Imagine seeing like someone on set, or like my dad seeing someone on set that's just like totally method, and like he's just like being like dramatic and in character to people on the set. Like my dad would just be like, this fucking idiot. Like, you know, it's like I feel like my dad's so like blue collar in the film industry that he doesn't like always. Not that he needs to, but he definitely doesn't get that. Like, he doesn't like the thing. He's just like, you know what, we're doing a job here. Like, let's get in, like, make a quick buck.
Yeah, it's a blue collar versus a white collar in the film industry, you know, which I respect both, but I think those guys you have to give space. The people that are in that elite, like, you know.
Well, yeah, you have to be so good to do that. Like, if you're
like
kind
Leo,
of good you method,
Daniel Day-Lewis, like these type of like household names. You know, I think the amount of money that they're paying them demands a sort of like patience for that kind of craziness. As long as they get the product,
you better
done.
be like on the GOAT list if you're gonna like pull some shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like my dad's told me before, he's worked with like Jim Carrey. Like he thinks he's a drama queen. You know? And like my friends are like, no, dude, like he's like the coolest.
He's GOAT level though.
But he is GOAT level for comedy. So I got to give.
And
it
I think
him.
there's also something to be said for like. I know a lot of people that are great people personally, but I think in their job, they have to be assholes. And, like...
They just want to get it done the best they can. I feel like if they feel like, even if they're wrong in this pursuit, like, if someone is, like, interrupting them or they think is interrupting them and it's, like, holding the art form back, I think it's, like, someone that passionate's going to get kind of pissed, you know? So, not excusing that behavior, but...
But I think as long as they get the product done, and... I think it's fair to judge the very famous people by the way they interact, like off camera or something, like when they're not filming or something, or when they're just being normal and not working. Because I don't know. I think a lot of those actors get a bad rap, but we don't need to go too in the weeds on that.
But yeah, dude. So just back to Daniel Day-Lewis real quick. He method acts.
Okay, he's getting back to the main point.
He is the GOAT. But the interesting thing about him is when he does method act, like he's such like I mean he's probably eccentric, but like normal guy in the sense that he'll do this crazy movie which he method acts in probably in every role, and then he'll leave. And I think I could be wrong here, but it's either like Ireland or Scotland. He lives in with his family in like what I imagine is this like modern or. I guess it's like pretty like simple, small,
Lord of the Rings.
Modest home, yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Exactly. He lives like in a grass hill.
In a hut.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So he, I don't know, it's just interesting that he'll go do that. And I've heard that he method acts and it takes him time and it really fucks with his like mental like health. So that's why he needs to just go back with his family, not see anyone, and just become like the father again that he was and like the husband again that he was. So he is retired, or so he says.
No.
His last movie he did was actually by Paul Thomas Anderson as well, which is called Phantom Thread, which maybe we'll do in the future. I highly recommend.
It's a trash film.
It's not as, I would say, entertaining like as There'll Be Blood, but it's good in its own sense. But
we'll find out.
Yeah, so he said, I guess PTA said that he didn't even really want to do like any more like movies, but he got him to do that one, and he's like, no, like I quit now. He's like, I have another passion, and I think he's just like, yeah, I just want to like fucking sew clothes, and it's just like,
yeah,
being the GOAT, and then like fucking like just being like, all right, I think I'm gonna like sew some buttons on some jeans now. Like, you better be good.
Yeah, I have a sneaky little idea that it's woodworking. Is that he's getting? I think him and Nick Offerman are in like a cabin in Norway, like doing woodworking. That's my theory.
That's the movie, or
no? That's just how they're passing time.
That'd be a sick documentary, man.
That's how they're passing time.
Jesus. Yeah, just whittling some wood, dude, and then like.
Hey, I got love for whittlers.
But yeah,
shout out to my whittlers.
So last thing to say about that is he is retired, but I know PTA said he's hitting him up, like the scummy LA director that he probably is, and is saying on a constant basis, let's make another movie. And I think that Daniel Day-Lewis just keeps sewing those jeans, and he doesn't reply. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's probably it. Are you...
Yeah, I feel good. Thanks for joining us today, and we had a great time watching this movie. If anyone wants to suggest any movies we can review or talk about, watch, hit us up on our IGs. Like I said, I'm at Nickelbach. He's at Pixel Snack. Sean, you got anything to say?
Yeah, like just to reaffirm, just rate us, subscribe on both Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube.
Yeah, rating would be great. That would be awesome.
Okay, and so I think we could probably wrap this up, right?
Yeah, I think we're good. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you next time.
I'll see you next time.
Are we the baddies?